Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we'll start. Okay. So I think message not seen once. So we start. Hmm?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So already we have started CPCA guidelines and we have seen the many points in that. So first, that is a physical facilities is required in animal house. So it should be have the proper physical facilities, maybe infrastructure of animal house. Is a that is a building materials. Is a which type of material which are used. Then the animal room doors. So doors should be appropriately used, and it should the appropriate material which are used for the doors. So it should be have the air resistant and moisture resistant doors must be there. And floors should be cleaned properly. That's why the floor should be as such that then draining facilities, whatever the excess water is used for the washing or used for the operation, right? That should be go in a proper drainage, right? So not be dump in one place. So that is a drainage must be important. The storage area, so where we want to keep the drugs, where we want to keep the some feeding material, that is a required. Then experimental area, so those are operational area, there's administrative area, and those are experimental area. So it should be have. Then some of there is a windows, exit windows. It should have the appropriate. So airy, the room should be airy and appropriate ventilation should be required for that animal house. Then it is a very important aspect that is a bedding size in the animal house. So bed. So the bed is required for the animals. So the animals which are keeping the cages with the bed. So particularly use the bed. Bed means that is a paddy is a metaphor of the rice. Upper part of the rice that is called as a paddy, and which are used as a bedding purpose. So this the fight is used because it's have that absorbent properties, so can absorb the urine of that animals, right, and not be affecting. So the free of toxic chemicals, then ammonia bindings. So it should be have the sterilizing. So the all the beds should be sterile. So avoid infection to the animals. Then easily stored. So can easily store that animal properly with the proper place. So the animal should be easily move from one place to other places or in a cabinet or in a cage. Then it should be uncontaminated. The hygienic condition should be maintained in a that store in the animal house. The desirable things are there. If you want to dispose any material or you can dispose the animal, those are the dead animal. So it should have the appropriate procedure is required for that. And it is the main purpose is to that is the incineration. Incineration is one of the process in which to dispose that the some of the material. Right? If you want to dispose that material. Then, so the material should be, that is a bedding should be easily available. So you can use that the bedding for the animals, right? And that should be required for that. Then this is about the all the facilities should be provided in the animal house and get the approval from the CPCA, and then we can start your experimentation on the animal, right? And this is so the proper guidelines which are provided by CPCA, right? So how to use and how to handle and all these things we can given that guidelines, right? So today we see there is a set standard operating procedure for that. So what are the things we can use in a animal house during the experimentation on the animal, right? So you should have the appropriate standard operating procedure must be required. So the institute shall maintain SOP describing the procedure. So SOP, the standard, step by step. So which are the stage first, second, and third? As like standard operating procedure must be required for any activity if you are doing in an animal house. This may be animal husbandry, so you should be how to handle that animals, right? How to maintain that animals. So you should have the appropriate SOPs. Then maintenance of the animal, so you can properly feeding to the animals with the that is a maintenance with the excessive water, and the feeding must be required for to maintain the hygienic condition in that animal house, and you should have the appropriate SOPs. Then breeding facilities, if you have the facilities for the breeding, right? So it's how the some standard operating procedure must be required. Then animal house microbial analysis. So can so analyze the microbes in that animal house, so will not be contaminated or infected to the animal. So that's why in the animal house should be have the zero microbial contamination. So you should have the appropriate procedure. Then expenditure records. So whatever the expenditure you can do and that animals, it should be able to maintain the sum of the records. So records is regarding we have seen last time is how you prepare that animals, and you should have the proper record. Then maintain that animals explantation, so protocol, right? Then after this protocol, that is a virus analysis, blood analysis, urine analysis, right? That record should be maintaining in your file, right? And that is a it should be how the some standard operating procedure must be required. Then this is about how to maintain that standard operating procedure. Is some guidelines should be provided regarding that. So SOP should be contain the following point is the name of the author. Means who is the author to prepare that the SOPs, right? So how to handle that animals? So this is a SOPs. So he prepares that, right? That should be name of that author, right? Then title of SOPs. What is title? Date of preparations, reference of previous SOPs on the same subject or the date. If having that SOPs are previously prepared, right? So and some of the modifications which are done in the present SOPs, right? So that reference must be required. Locations and distribution of SOPs with the sign of each recipient. So locations, so that SOP should be have located at the proper place, right? So if you have any instrument in that animal house, right? So how to handle that that equipments, how to handle that machine, right? So it should be have the standard operating procedure must be required. So this SOPs we can put up on put it near to that instruments, right? So can how to handle that instrument should be easily understand, and proper procedure must be required for to handle that explanation to the that machine. The objectives, what is the objectives of the explantation? So it should be also contained in your SOPs. Detailed information of the instrument which are used in a relation with animals. So how to use that instruments in concern with the animals, right? The normal value of all the parameters, right? So normal value of the so all this content should be in that SOPs, and that after preparation of the SOPs, put up the sign on that SOPs who are the prepared with the check by and supervised by, right? This all this content sign on that particular document SOPs, and then can frame at appropriately and the place at appropriate at the proper place. So that is required for the standard operating procedure. Then so these are some of the during the explantation. So we have to give that some of the analgesia, anesthetic agents to so reduce the pain during its explantation. So this main purpose is to reduce the pain or to avoid the pain to that animal, right? So not be this is the main concern. So that's why some of the anesthetic agents which will be used to the animal, so anesthetize the animals and do the explantation of the animal. So some of the sedatives or the analgesic and anesthetics which are used to control the pain during the explanation, so that should be required for that. And then this is commonly used anesthetic agents, maybe ketamine and then the pentobarbital or the thiapenton sodium or urethra, right? These are the different anesthetic agents which are used for the different animals, right? So these are the animals: mouse, rat, hamster, rabbit, cat, dog, monkey, or the guinea pigs. So the proper dose should be given to that animal, right? So not be overdose, right? So maybe chances there is a maybe animal may be dead, right, due to the excessive dose of the anesthetic agent which are used. So proper dose must be required for, and what is this first? So you have decide that how much time required for explanation, whether it is 1 hour, whether it is 2 hour, as depending upon this time of period, right, we have to administer the dose to that anesthetic dose to that animal. So within that explanation, the animals not be conscious, right? So always be unconscious animals may be required, should be give the highest responding, right, and to avoid the pain to that animal. So that's why the proper dose must be administered to the animal. It should be required. Then euthanasia, this is one of the term which are related with to so killing the animals, right? So if the animals have the incurable disease, if you have that high infection, right, and this infection is not be curable, right? So such type the animal we can killing that animals by forcefully, right? So that process it is called as euthanasia. So during the death of the animal, without causing anxiety, because if during that the death of the animal will not be producing any anxiety or the pain or distress to the animal. This is also consideration. So when you're killing that animals to that, if there is animals are not be curable, or if you have not be used that animal, so it should be disposed by killing. That process is called as that. The minimum psychological, physiological, and psychological disturbances must be required. So it should be minimum. So avoid the forcefully killing. So as per the depend, the compatibility with purpose of study. So why you where you use that animals and what is purpose of the studies, and minimum emotional effects on the operator. So minimum emotional effects on the operator means that so during explanation maybe chances there is a emotional status to towards that animal, right? So during that the killing of animals, so that operator will not be to kill that animal. That is called as. So this is about the location should be separate from the animal rooms. Free from any environmental contaminants should be required. So during that euthanasia procedure, that all points should be considered. Then you can kill that animals. Those animals are not used. Those animals are having that curable disease, incurable disease, having that very high infection. Right, such type of the animals will be dead, killed. Then laboratory animals ethics should be so all, during this explanation. So all the scientists which are working in the laboratories, right? So you can consider the ethical consideration of the animal when you're dealing with the animals. Should we have this ethical consideration? Avoid the unnecessary pain to the animal. This is the main consideration. And what are the ethics which are used to during explanation that can be used by every person, every technical and non-technical person in animal house. Then transgenic animals. So those animals which are uh, having the foreign genes have the engineer. Means if you have administered that some of the genes to that animal for this condition, right? Some of the species which are used, right? And after using that pacing, it may chances there is a right. Such type the animal, so those have the various gene is a different genes of that animal, right? So can keep separately, right? So can study of the separately. This is the main concept with this, and those have the knockout animals, so means which are not be used that animal, right? If I use the specific gene and which are injected the gene to that animal, right? So disruption leading to loss of function means that lockout these knockout animals, those are not using the animal, right? So which are keeping this separately, and that is called as a transgenic. Means transgenic means that is a some genes, there's DNAs which are transferred to the one animal to another animal, and see the effect of that. This is a this type of the animals which are used in a separately, or say can keep in separately. This about the maintenance must be required in animal house. The special care has to taken with the transgenic or gene lockout animals. So those are the specific genes of that animal and keeping it separately. Prevent the crossbreeding with animals. So those are the uh, uh, is a specific gene of the animal, right? So will not be kept separately. So will not be prevent from the crossbreeding. right? So this is one of the aspects. Then knockout animals should be maintained in a clean room environments, and we can keep in isolate things. Then can dispose that animal if that animals is not be using that animal. We can keeping in separate cabinets, and we can dispose that animal if are not using that animal, or if having the disease of the animal will not be curable disease. So that particular animals are disposed. So particularly for those are the knockout animals, those are the transgenic animals, right? So first we can inducize and then dispose of. So this is a proper procedure which are used to dispose that animal with this, and that maintenance must be required. Then breeding and genetics for initiating colonies or breeding stock must be procured from the CPCA registered. So if you want to breeding of the some of the species in your animal house, right? So you have to take the permission from the CPCA. So you can import that the some specific genes breeding stock, right? And that which are used in the in your animal house for the breeding of the particular the animals. So this will be required. Then operational guidelines in IFCPC. We have already seen that the guidelines should be provided to the every IEC committee or every college committees, right? So regarding that, the registration of that, the establishment of the animal house, right? Then registration of establishment of that, which experimentation which are due in the animal, approval of animal house, permission of the committee conducting experiment, recommendation for the importing. If you want to import of the some of the chemical from the other countries, so you can give the such type the guidelines is provided by CPC. Some of these regulatory guidelines may be Committee for Purpose Control and Supervision. It is called as a CPCA. So can ensure that animals are subject to the unnecessary pain or suffering before, during, or after performance or explanation. So that should be required. So such guidelines is provided at the every animal house. So unnecessary pain should not be producing. The subcommittee of the CPCA, these are the subcommittee of CPC is there. They can looking after this can appropriately use that animal. The subcommittee on these other two committees are there. So subcommittees on the large animals. Those are large animals, maybe monkeys or dogs, right? So that is particular committee which are used, right? So this is a subcommittee. If I use that large animals, so we can take the guideline, take that permission from the subcommittee of CPCA. Then subcommittee of selection of the CPCA nominees of IACA committees. This subcommittee will be decided who is a member of that CPCA committee, IACA committee in the colleges, right? So that such the guideline should be provided by that subcommittee, okay, so can select that nominees of the IACA committee. Then, so these are the main objective of the IAC. So IAC is a institutional animal ethics committee. So this committee will be formed or established in the every colleges. So those colleges which are perform the explanation on the animal, right? And it is a very compulsory or any mandatory to all the colleges should be formed that committee, right? As per the guidelines of the CPCA, right? So this is the main objective of this IAC is to that. So what are the expenditures performed under supervision of the person duty qualified person. So the person should be qualified in that animal house, so can handle that animals in a handle that animals in an animal house. Then expenditures are performed due to care of the immunities and prevent animals to feeling pain. So that should be also taken care in ICE committee. Then course of the experimentation. So which anesthetic agents are used? What is the dose of that? Right. So not be avoiding that serious suffering to the animal. So that should be consideration of the IC. Then that explanation of the animal should be avoided. Right. So generally, the animals should be avoided to use that. Right. So, but if you want to use that, you can take the guideline to see the guidelines of the CPCA. Right. So that should be required. So then experimentation on the larger animals should be again avoided. So these are animal studies, the last step of that, any research of that, right? So if so research is not completed if you are not using that animals, it is a in preclinical study. So that should be required. So, and then experiments are performed is the purpose of acquiring manual skill. So, not be performed means if any new technicians is there, if you want to do the explanation of the animal for a technical purpose or the skill purpose, right? So, is not be allowed by IC committee because will be pay, it is again the painful to that animal. So, such things will be avoided in that animal house. The performance of the expansion is poorly properly look both this before and after explantation. So before explantation, so how to the explantation whether it's performed by the animals properly or not, right? So after this explanation, what will happen to the animal? So whether is the status of that animal we can consider during explantation. The suitable records can be maintained during its explantation. So that is a main objective of the IAC committee, which are formed in the UD colleges. Then this is the IAC committee includes these are the nominees of the IAC committee. So every IAC committee should include the one of the biological scientists. So these are the total 7 members is required for that IAC committee, right? So first is biological scientist, right? Then 2 scientists from the different biological discipline, right? Then a veterinary doctor or veterinary is involved in the caring of the animal. Scientists in charge of the animal care facilities. So those are the in charge of the animal house, right? So you can look after all the animals and explanation of the animal. Then scientists from the outside the visitor, right? The non-scientific socially aware of the those how the social worker is also required for the one of the member in that committee. So you can look after that. So social aspects of that, right? The representative or the nominee of CPCA, one of the representative or the nominee of the CPCA committee also, they specialize maybe co-opted or the reviewing the special projects. So one of the member which are co-opted from the outside. So you can look after this all the projects and reviewing that projects, whether the project is appropriate or not, whether this project will be used animals or not. This all the consideration which are done by that specialist, right? So the specialist you can so this co-opted member is there. So you can invite him to from the other sources. So if you have used particularly for the project is a hazardous agent, maybe radioactive substances or deadly microorganisms, if you have just testing of that animal, right? So such specialists must be required for when you that is given the approval of such type of the projects. So these are about the different 7 members required for IAC committee. The main functions of that committee is to breeding of the experimentation of the animal, breeding. So breeding of the animals in a animal house, do the experimentation on the animal, right? In the animal house. So control and supervision, and this rule is 1998. Then purpose of control and supervision of the experimentation of the animal perform. Control and supervision. You can everything, every activity is controlled in the animal house, supervised by the animal house by the in charge of the animal house. Then work to be achievement of the so what is the objective of that explanation or the what is the objective of protocol? It should be taken care of that about this. So unnecessary things will not be doing in the animal house. Then ISC will be review and approve all the type of research proposals involving the small animal experimentation before start the study. So the ISC committee will be review and the approval of all the projects, all the research proposals which are research proposals which are coming from the different departments. So can scrutinize all these proposals and before the starting the studies we can scrutinize that and given the proper permission to that the investigator those have the research proposal. Then anyway IAC committee is required to monitor research throughout the study. So through he can monitor all the study in the animal house. So after completion of studies or what is a periodic report. So this report is the same to that CPC committee. So these are our research proposals. So we want to uh, start that experimentation of the animal. Then after doing that experimentation, so what will be happen after that study, right? So this all the reports should be Each and every report should be prepared and sent to that CPCA committee. All right, and this is one of the aspects. Then the visit to the animal house. The main function of IS committee is to visit to animal house laboratories where the experiments are conducted. So what will happen to that animal house? So is always be supervised by that person, right? So wrong thing should not be happen in that animal house must be required. Then committee has to ensure the compliance with the regulatory requirements. Is all the applicable rules and guidelines should be provided to that IEC committees during inspection, those who are the conducting experiment. Then key roles of that IEC is to assess the proposal to use animals for scientific purpose, can see that whether a use is justified. So if you are using the rabbits, right? So how many rabbits? What is status of the rabbit? What is the weight of that? What is the age of that? What is that status of that rabbit? Right? So that should be considered. And it's number of the rabbit. How many number of rabbits can be used? Whether this number of rabbits is justified or not. So you have to every time you can justify the meanings. Right. So if I use the nine rabbits, right, what is purpose to using that nine rabbits? So this is justification must be required. So welfare of the animals is protected. So well-beingness of the animals is main purpose behind this too, and is the main key role of that. Then by convinced to benefits from the use to potential cost of the animal. So this what the animal is used should be with the benefits the research things, and again is some of the cost is also is incurred during the experimentation. So you can procure the animals from the other sources, then use that animal to maintain the animal, to provide the different foods material to the animal. So this some of the maintenance cost must be required for that. So that cost is also incurred in the cost of that every test, right? So these are aspects. Then member secretary of CPCA. So member secretary is responsible for registration regarding the breeding and experimentation of the animal. Application of the permission for conducting experiments are brought before CPCA and SLEA, small animals or large animals. So this is a subcommittee of SCA means that is a subcommittee of large animals use. So the subcommittee will be decided that and given the approval to that. So those who have used the large animal for experimentation. Right. Then he has also been authorized to constitute the inspection team for inspection of animal house. So this is the member secretary acts have the roles and responsibilities of CPCA committees, right? Given the permission to that the animal house, given permission to the experimentation of whether it is a small animal, whether it is a large animal, what is the number of the animal, right? That should be considered. The nominations of the co-chair and vice chair of the regulatory expert bodies, right? So always be in the IAC committees. Chairman of that committee is a principal, right? This is one of the aspects. So can nominate by the CPCA that committee. Then the IC committee is responsible things to duration of the appointment of the this committee. IC committee's requirement is to that. So duration of the appointment is for a period of 3 years, right? So every members who can remain on the body is a 3 years. Committees reconstituted at the time of renewal. If you want to renew that committees right after 3 years, so at least half of the members should be replaced. From the 7 members, the half of the members from the 3 or 4 members can replace by that committee. Then member can be replaced at the if the event of death of that animal, date of that person, or long-term non-abilities, though that person is not be available in the meetings or not be available for any guidance to explanation, or if any death of that persons, so can replace that person in consideration or approval of the other committee members. Member can tender resignation from the committee with proper. So if any person, any members not be doing work, or he want wish to given the resignation from that committee, so he have the some proper procedure is required. So you can given the resignation to the CPCA. So CPCA, and then CPCA is approved that resignation, then there is a proper procedure. Then all members should be maintained absolute confidentially. So all the members, what they are doing in the experimentation on the animal, right? So all the aspects will be confidential. Things are there. So and this the confidential things will not be open to the other persons in the all the committee members. Then conflicts of the interest should be declared by the members. So if during the explanation, so if any proposals, any research proposals are there, so every member should be again consider the conflict of interest. Means in that explanation, any interest to that the person or not. This conflict of interest is also required for if you want to publish the one of the research paper, right? So one of the research paper. So in that paper, so every authors and co-authors they give the conflict of interest, right? So if have the conflict of interest, so that particular uh, paper is not be published, right? So if how so which of the interest it is also consideration. So all the members, all the co-authors and the authors should be say that so will not be have any interest in that the paper, right? Then the paper is published. So this about the one of the thing is in IIC also. So every members should be put off the whether is interest in the particular research proposal or not will be considered. NIS is required to formulate SOPs for working environment to follow its all the meeting. In all the meetings, so generally there is a 1 month or the 3 months can conducting the ISC committee meetings. Right in that committee, at the proper procedure, standard operating procedure must be required for when you conduct that meetings. Then so this application, so if you want to application means if any investigator want to do the explanation on the animal, right? He want to give the proposal. So all the proposals should be submitted in a specified form. Each have some form is there, right? In that form, you can send the proposal to the ISC committee. Then all the relevant documents on the checklist should be enclosed with the application form. Then the required number of the copies proposal, the number of copies is prepared and sent to the ILC committees, right? And with the name of the principal investigator, co-investigator, with the collaborator, with the sponsor of that research proposal, all should be considered, all should be in that application, all right? And this application which are sent to that ILC committee, right? Then the ILC committees can conducting the one of the meeting. So all the members of the ILC committee should be there in the meeting, right? And discuss about the which are the research proposals coming, right? So what is the research area? What is the with the number of animals used? What is the species of the animal, right? Whether is the, all the animals is using is very justifiable or not. So all should be reviewed in that the research proposal. Then proposal will be sent to the member at least 15 days in advance. So before the date, the 15 days must be required in can send the advance in that. Then decision will be taken by consensus of the after discussion. Right? Within the 7 members, we can discuss the things and take the decision. So if the negative viewpoint is there, we can record it in the minutes, right? So some of this from the 7 members, if the 7 members is 5 members is negative things, so we can review the things what will be things on that the research proposal. In case of consensus is not be reached, right, then the case should be referred to that. If a decision is not be coming out during the meeting of the IC, then all the reports which are this research proposal which are sent to the CPCA and the CPCA, all the members we can consider that this proposal and taking the decision on that research proposal. The researchers should be invited for official clarification if needed. So if the CPCA want to do that some of the clarification on that point or the any research proposal, right? So then he can invite that the researchers or inventor and take some clarification of that particular things. Then independent consultant and expert should be invited for the upper opinion of the. So if any research proposal is there, so can outside consultant or the outside specialist person or scientist can invited to that the CPCA and comment on that particular research proposal, right? So this is also is given that things. The decision will be minuted then. So you can during the minutes during the meetings, you can prepare the minutes of the meeting, and the chairperson is approval of that the meeting, approval of that the decision, and put up the sign of that all the CPC members, and that decision which are given to that the IAC committee. So this is about general ground rules are must be required. So registration of establishment of breeding and animals. So this that we have already seen. Then application should be combined by the bank drafts. So if you want to provide any application research proposal, right? So the it is a fee is 1,000, right? So as a CPCA as a registration, this is a registration fee for the CPCA, right? If you want to send that is research proposal to the CPCA, so establishment should be have the constituted ISC before applying registration. So establishment should be consulted ISC before application and registration. So all this ISC committee prepare the reports and send to the CPCA and then give the registration. So before taking any decision regarding registration, so a spots inspection of that all animal house facilities. You can inspect the all animal facilities and given the permission to add the IAC committee or that IAC that establishment. Then approval of the animal house, that should be detailed consideration, that is approval of animal house by CPCA. So detailed inspection of the inspection team as per the existing practice of the, and is a following composition of the inspection team. CPCA nominee is one of the member, expert consultant of the CPCA, and the person in charge of the another animal house facilities. So those are the outside states. Those are the animal house facilities. Such person which are calling to that, in that committee. So this is an inspection committee. These are three members are there. One of the CPCA nominee, one of the expert consultant from the outside, and the person who is in charge from the another animal house. So those are highly reputed animal house. Such members should be calling to that committee and facilitate can inspect all these animal house facilities and given the registration. The permission of the committees to conduct experiments. So no proposal for animal experimentation will be entertained unless animal house facilities is approved. So animal house facility should be approved, right? Until not we use that. Approval of experimentation on the small animals, right? According to ISE, the approval of experimentation of large animals. So all should be considered by the that ISC committees and decided that given the permission, given the decision regarding to doing the experimentation. So these are different principles utilized for caring the animals. Right. Principle number one. So there's a testing, research, and training. So the CPCA is have some that principle, right? So and you can so that CPCA look